Will you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Cook?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Supervisor Williams?
Here. First on tonight's agenda is a presentation on the Carmel Central School District budget. I'm pleased to introduce John Fink and Mary Margaret Zare, is that right? Who are here to talk about the budget.
Thank you for having us. Mr. Fink is our Assistant Superintendent for Business, and I'm the Superintendent of the school district. And last night we just formalized at the board meeting our budget. So we have some details here for you, and Mr. Fink is handing out a flyer. Do you have a copy?
Could you use the microphone? They're never going to pick it up. And could you make sure that there's a green light on and push the button if not? Sorry. All right, we've got technical issues at this point.
Sure.
Go back to batteries, right?
Got red lights.
Really, already?
Yeah. Sorry, guys. No worries.
You're quick.
It's what happens when you use renewable energy.
All right.
So thank you. Last night, the Board of Education finalized our budget process. We've been working on it since January, maybe December, trying to come up with a good solution for the 23-24 school year. We've been tackling a lot of different issues in the district. We have a lot of increases, just like our homeowners have. Lots of rising healthcare costs, supplies and utilities are rising, our pension contributions are rising. And we have a lot of students in our district with special needs, and that population is growing. Although our enrollment is declining a little bit, our special needs population is dramatically rising. So I'll give the floor to John to talk a little about revenues and expenditures.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for having us this evening. Up on what's behind me, so thank you for making that very large, and on the flyers, we broke out our revenues and expenditures. So if you look at the top chart, we compare our revenues from the 22-23 school year to what we anticipate for the 23-24 school year. And you'll see that that first one is the local property tax. That's where obviously the majority of our budget is generated from, is that local property tax. And so we are anticipating that to be about $101,399,438. Next one down is the New York State aid. That is a large money that we get from state aid that comes down. And you'll see that was a significant increase, $4.8 million. That's related to foundation aid. Over the past several years, the legislative body has been increasing that amount of foundation aid to the school districts, and we are very pleased with that amount. And then you'll see some other fund balance, which is revenue generated from underspending or additional revenues unanticipated, and some miscellaneous revenues. So we're looking at a proposed budget revenue side of $140,949,698, and that's about a 4.58% increase from budget to budget. And then on the expenditure side, you're going to see the different categories that we break our budget into: the general support, instructional support, pupil transportation, community programs, benefits, debts, and transfers. So our general support is really kind of that administrative side support area. Our instructional support, obviously the largest area, that's our teaching and learning side. Pupil transportation, that speaks volumes for itself. That's our busing and our systems that get our kids to and from school. Our community programs, we were involved with a DARE program with the Kent PD. They come in and provide instruction for our students. And then we have our benefits, which is our health benefits and employee retirement system, teacher retirement system, and our debt schedule. So you see our expenditures balance out to be that $140,949,698. Okay, again, that 4.58% increase.
So some of the additions that we've added to the budget this school year are due to some of our special needs students. We're looking at an increase of special ed teachers, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, and a speech therapist, a bilingual school psychologist to meet those needs of our growing population, as well as a student assistance counselor to help our students who are struggling with emotional needs. We also are seeing an addition of a technology coach, an English language learner teacher, and we are implementing a new reading program next year, so we've included a small amount of supply money for that and some professional development and field trip funding this year. On the non-instructional side, we're adding additional monitors for safety purposes at all of our buildings, a benefits coordinator, some additional athletic programming because we've had more students coming out for programs, which is fantastic, and some asbestos removal programs, some equipment, and our school bus lease and purchase program are included in that. So as John talked about, the expenditures match the revenues, and we are looking at a 1.86 tax levy increase for next year. Because we just adopted this last night, we don't have the amount of a projection of what that would cost on an average house in the area, but we'll be putting that out on the website soon and sharing that at our hearing. I think it's on May 3rd. So John, you want to talk about?
So yeah, thanks, Mary Margaret. Again, the max tax levy the district could have gone to was a 2.64 increase, and our Board of Education elected to take into a number of different factors in our community and went with a 1.86 tax levy increase. This is actually the third year in a row that we have not gone to our max tax levy. So over the past 8 years, there was about $1 million in savings in not going to the max tax levy, and in the last 2 years prior to this year, there's a $3.5 million savings that the district did not put to the taxpayers. So then we talk about, what if. We always want to make sure if the vote doesn't go through. And we talk about what's called the contingency budget, and that's if the voters don't approve of the budget and it fails, we become restricted on what we can do with respect to our spending. So you'll see we must reduce our expenditures from the current standpoint by about $1.8 million, and that will come from areas in equipment. So some of our facilities equipment will have to go immediately. We have some small buses that we're looking to purchase that will come out of the budget, and then we would have to reduce by about $1.5 million after that mark from the general fund.
So when we go to vote, there's 3 things that we're going to ask people to vote on, plus the people who are running for office. We have 2 open seats. We're going to ask for people to vote yes or no on the budget, which we just presented. And we have 2 safety building projects that we're looking at. One is a replacement of a 50-year-old 10,000-gallon water tank at the middle school. It is well beyond its useful life, and we could have an emergency on our hands if that fails at any point. And then our phone, intercom, and public address system also is past its useful life. It's difficult to have anyone come and fix the copper lines right now, and there's been days where we've had issues not being able to get a line out. So both of those will be on in separate votes. So you will vote for the budget, the first referendum, the water tank, and then the phone system, and then for the candidates. And John can give you just a little more detail on how the funding for these referendums are.
Sure. What's important to note for the safety referendums, there will be 0 tax levy increase. There's no tax impact on this. So the district has a number of reserves that are set up that we're allowed to keep in order for specific reasons. One of those specific reasons is capital projects. So we have a $2.9 million balance in that capital project reserve at this point, and this would be a transfer from that capital reserve fund, that savings account, so to speak, to spend $1.5 million on this water tank and the VoIP phone system. The VoIP phone system also provides not only communications in the building, in the district, and outside the district, but is also makes us compliant with, I believe it's, I can't remember the law at this point, where we need to have safety and panic buttons within the classrooms in order to create lockdowns and those safety procedures that are mandated by New York State.
So I think that is our presentation. We can take questions or just leave you with this.
Does your budget take into account for this coming year discount for veterans?
So we have a number of exemptions listed in all the various towns, okay? So they come from Putnam County, and we have some in Dutchess County for the East Fishkill. We do have some veterans exemptions. We do have some fire and ambulance exemptions that are already available to us. So I think I'm going to go ahead and probably answer a question that you might ask, is that did we adopt the latest exemptions that were offered by New York State? Because we've been asked that quite a bit from the different towns, is that there was 3 exemptions up for discussion, which was the volunteer, fire, and ambulance, disabled veterans, correct, and a senior citizen one. And those were presented to the Board of Education in the committee meeting back in January, who elected not to take the exemptions or add the exemptions this year or pass a resolution for that, but rather they said they would like to see how the budget process turns out and then look at it again later in 2023, back in maybe towards November, December time, in order for the next cycle year.
Anyone else?
If I do, but if you have one, I'll wait.
No, go ahead.
Okay. The transportation budget, of course, I'm gonna go in that area. How many, the lease, how many buses are you leasing?
No problem. So last year the board was informed, we have an aging fleet. Our fleet is roughly around 20 years average age, okay, of our large buses. 10 years is the life expectancy for a bus, okay, and then they become incredibly costly upkeep. So phase 1 of the program, we are leasing 16 large buses that we just took delivery on last week. We actually took delivery on 12. We're waiting on the 4 others for DOT inspection. So we're proposing phase 2 of that, which would be an additional 12 buses in the 23-24 school year budget.
Are you are you doing one-for-one disposal for?
Basically, yes. We do keep some around in case buses do break down, okay? So then you have additional to deploy. But yes, we do. We will declare them for disposal, and then they get auctioned off.
How long is the lease program?
The 5-year lease program for the big buses. And then we were looking at a 10-year purchase program for the small vehicles, minibuses and Suburbans.
Okay. SROs, only because I have the opportunity to ask these questions right now.
This is why we're here.
Yeah, do we have SROs in all of or SPOs? Are we adding to that, to any of the schools?
We have SROs at the high school and the middle school, and then we have SPOs at the 3 elementaries, Matt Pat, Kent Elementary, Kent Primary. There hasn't been a discussion to add. We've had a couple safety forums lately. I know that's been around in the news, and that was a request. So that will be potentially something that the district may consider in the future, adding additional SROs, SPO to the buildings.
Additionally, we just had a safety audit done, so we're looking at that as well, of any other concerns that are coming forward to make decisions for the future. I think one of the things that a lot of people have been talking about is different hardening devices for doors and or removal of windows. So I think those are things that as we start looking at the results of the safety audit and the community forums, the board will have to take a hard look at whether we want to look at some sort of capital project to take care of those things, because the price of taking care of windows and or hardening doors is incredibly expensive.
Okay, and then I just have one last question.
Go.
When you spoke about the phone lines that you're replacing, are those actual hard lines, or are you digital at all, computerized?
That's exactly correct. They'll be digital phone
So you're
lines.
upgrading to a digital system?
Correct.
Where you could activate a lockdown from a telephone?
Correct, and it communicates
Okay.
with our current system, so our cameras as well. It will be our bell system, our public announce system, so we can get things out clearer outside as well.
Okay, and part 2 of my question is, do you participate in monthly safety meetings with the BOCES, where they come in and they evaluate what's going on? In Brewster, they're called SHEP meetings, Safety, Health, and Emergency Preparedness. Are you actively doing that in tabletops?
Carmel is not, because I'm not familiar with the acronym that you just used, so I would have to catch that again. We have our building level safety teams. They meet once a month, And then we have a district level safety team that meets 5 times per year. Okay, we do exactly what you just talked about. We talk about improvements to our facilities, what we can do better. We talk about our drills. So what used to be called fire drills are now our lockdown, we follow the SHELL acronym, lockdown, lockout procedures. And we also do tabletops, so we do work with BOCES very closely. Frank Guglieri,
good.
he is a product of the district.
Say his name and I'm happy.
There you go.
Okay.
He was just at a communications team meeting over at the high school tonight helping. We love Mr.
Okay.
Guglieri.
Great. And then I'm just going to say my grandchildren attend Carmel School, so it's not the only reason why, but lately there's just been a lot of activity, and it's scary. It's there's so much going on, and I feel really bad for what they have to go through. Just getting off the bus and going into the building. So thank you.
Charlie, Sean?
I'm good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just wanted, it was more a procedural question so that I understand. You had mentioned the upgrades, like you had mentioned, to the phone system and some of the other technology, but it's under a referendum. But meanwhile, you made it sound like it was a mandate that you do this. So why is that under a referendum and not part of the normal budget? Is it because of where the funding comes from?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Based on the reserve that the money sits in, the 2.9, we need voter authorization to
Okay.
transfer that out. That's
Understood.
simply it. It could be, these items could be listed in the budget, but the way we propose this is that we have that money sitting there, no tax impact. Hopefully our taxpayers will approve these.
And is that because these are like capital improvements as opposed to the new positions or the like under the budgetary, the instructional components? Those are additional positions or half positions. Those are ongoing, right? So they're costs that are going to be into the future. So those are part of your normal budget as opposed to a referendum?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, at this point, I'll open it up to any member of the audience. If you have any questions, approach the mic and give your name and address for the record.
George Disrow over at Tammany Hall Road in the Carmel School District. My question is, in the event that the budget is defeated, does this district automatically go to a contingency budget, or do they then resubmit it for a second vote?
The Board of Education will have a choice. They could go directly to contingent, or they could put another vote out. So it's up to the board to make that decision.
Anyone else? All right, we'll open it up to people joining us by Zoom tonight. If anybody joining us by Zoom, if you would unmute and give your name and address for the record. All right, John and Mary, Margaret, I would like to thank you very much for coming in here tonight and presenting your budget to us. I will say that frequently I have people in my office who are very concerned about the taxes in our community. And the school tax is a very large part of that. So I am very, very pleased to see that even though you've got almost a 5% increase, most of that is coming through state aid, and you're keeping a very responsible budget under 2%. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yes, thank you very much. We'll share that sentiments with the board. They did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next on tonight's agenda is a budget presentation on New York's budget. We are joined here tonight by Assemblyman Matt Slater. Very pleased to have Matt here. Hustled all the way down from Putnam Valley tonight, so thank you,
I
Matt,
did,
for
yeah.
coming
This
in.
is my third time today talking about the state budget. I guess it's budget night for Town of Patterson, huh?
I guess so.
Yes, so. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Matt Slater. Proud to be your state assemblyman representing the 94th District. We cover half of Yorktown, Somers, 80% of Putnam County, basically everything but Phillipstown. And so I've been wanting to come around to introduce myself. I come from local government. I was a supervisor of the town of Yorktown for 3 years. And so I have a genuine appreciation for what you all do on a daily basis. And so I think it's important, I feel always, to make sure that there's a clear line of communication. And obviously, Supervisor, you and I We're on the phone together quite frequently.
Frequently.
And it's been great. But also, so you, both the town board and also the residents of Patterson understand some of the impacts that may be coming because of decisions being made on the state level. And you heard just before by the Carmel school superintendent about the increase in school aid being projected for the town of Carmel, which is great news. And really, I give credit where credit's due, and I applaud the governor for increasing foundation aid to the level that she did, and it's going to help all of our public schools all across Putnam County and New York State. I just want to preface that, I should have, by saying the budget update is there is no budget. So we don't have one just yet. Maybe next week, we'll see. It's kind of like Groundhog Day up there. But we're anxious to get back because obviously the state fiscal year ended March 31st. We were expected to have a budget passed by that point. The budget for New York State is massive. Projected to be approximately $234 billion. You heard that right, billion with a B. And so what have we done since then? We've passed two extenders, budget extenders, because we want to make sure, obviously, as you all do, we value responsible governments. We want to make sure government continues to operate, making sure that our correctional officers get paid, our law enforcement, our mental health professionals, and making sure that all of our institutions continue to operate to provide services to those in need. So here's a crazy number. So from April 1st to the 17th, just for the basic functionality of state government, $1.9 billion. And it was passed unanimously with bipartisan support, again, because we want to make sure that government continues to operate while we negotiate the final budget product. Unlike local government and unlike the school board and the school budget, we do things a little differently in Albany, unfortunately. And I disagree with it, but those are the rules of engagement. Here, on the local level, you set your budget. It's just numbers. It costs me X to run the town. I need Y to cover the cost. That's a budget. Pretty simple. In Albany, they do things called Article 7 language, which is policy. So they tie policy to the state budget. And it's the policy right now that is causing a stalemate. And I just wanted to go over a couple of the policies that are being deliberated on, because I want you to understand the potential impact it could have on the Patterson community, because as the supervisor and the town board knows, some of them are quite substantial. The number one issue right now that is being deliberated on is cashless bail. Now, I believe cashless bail is arguably the worst policy ever implemented in the state of New York. We all know, obviously, the index crimes continue to rise. We've seen, unfortunately, a catch and release system where criminals who are being arrested a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen times keep getting released because you can't set bail to make sure they come back and they're held accountable under the law. To her credit, and again, give credit where credit's due, Governor Hochul has proposed removing the least restrictive clause from the law. What does that mean? The least restrictive clause that's in right now really ties the hands of judges when it comes to setting bail, at least in theory. And she believes that by removing this clause, it's going to give greater judicial discretion. Now, I had lunch today. I spoke at the Westchester Chiefs of Police Association. And when you speak with law enforcement, whether police, our DA's office, judges, they disagree with that assessment. But still, this is where the governor wants to go. I think it's at least a half step forward rather than another 8 steps backwards with some of the policies that I've read and seen being introduced up there when it comes to the criminal justice system. But 9 out of 10 New Yorkers point to crime as the number one issue facing our state, and rightfully so. And at least they're trying to get something done. Unfortunately, New York City special interests and New York City politicians are pushing back on the governor's proposal. They don't want to see anything done when it comes to reforming cashless bail or any of the criminal justice policies that have been put into place. Things like raise the age, the discovery laws, all of those reforms that we need according to law enforcement, according to the District Attorneys Association, according to people who are really trying to protect our communities, they're all meeting very stiff resistance by very powerful special interests right now. And so there's a complete stalemate on the state government side over this one issue. And so, again, we'll have to see where we wind up. Apparently, there were some reports today that there may have been some movement on some type of agreement. My fear is, if you can't even agree on removing the least restrictive clause, what's the final going to look like through a negotiation? I don't think that it's going to have the type of impact that we frankly need across New York State. So we'll see what the final is on the cashless bail side. The second issue then, once we get past that, then we get into another policy issue. And the supervisor and I have many conversations about this, and that's Governor Hochul's proposal when it comes to housing. And I should also say that when it comes to the state budget, the governor is the one who sets the tone, she sets the pace, she sets the policy, and we all in the legislature have to react. We have to either accept or reject what she's proposing. Now, she's proposed really 3 housing proposals, and they're all significant because they impact Patterson directly. The first one is her housing compact. The housing compact calls for 800,000 multifamily units to be built in Nassau, Suffolk, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, Rockland. And she really is, I think, completely overstepping her bounds as the governor with this proposal. And I do also want to point out, if I may, that when she gave her State of the State address in the Assembly chamber this year, she called out Putnam County by name when proposing this, saying this is the things that Putnam County needs to do, and so they won't do it. I'm going to propose this, which essentially mandates what she wants. How does it do that? Not only does she propose the 800,000 units, she's also proposed a measly, and I would say borderline insulting, $250 million to pay for infrastructure. As the town board knows, and anyone in local government knows, when you're doing development, there are obvious infrastructure needs. Roads, water, sewer. That's not even talking about the impact of public safety, fire, police, etc. So $250 million pot to be split by all of Suffolk, all of Nassau, and the entire Hudson Valley. Do you think you're going to get any money out of that? Because I don't. But that's where she's hanging her hat. Probably the worst part of it all, if an application comes before the town board or your planning board, and you dismiss the application based off of the legal process, there is now going to be, under her proposal, if it's approved, an appeals board in Albany that can reverse any decision you make, any decision the town makes. That completely takes local control off the table. And now the state government, Albany, can come into Patterson and say, no, we want this project here. And they will dictate it just as they want to meet the housing goals set forth by the governor. I think it's a complete assault of the Hudson Valley. I think it's completely short-sighted. I think it also proves the governor's, frankly, lack of knowledge when it comes to local government and how we operate. And I say we because I always wear my town supervisor hat when I'm in these conversations. And so that is just the first proposal. The second proposal is actually worse than the first, if you can believe that. The second proposal, which would impact Patterson directly, has to do with your train station. Because the governor's proposing a transit-oriented development proposal, and on 1 acre, within a half a mile radius of your train station, as of right, you could build a 50-unit apartment complex. As of right. What does that mean? That means no site plan approval. That means not going through your normal seeker review. Oh, by the way, both for Housing Compact and TOD, she wants to short-circuit the seeker review process, which means no environmental review, no impact on traffic, no impact on schools. And again, you're taking that review process that's put into place by law off the table. Again, taking away local input and local review and local control. But as for the TOD, you have to follow the Hudson train lines all the way up, and wherever there's a train station, half-mile radius, 50 units an acre would be allowed under her proposal. This has been met with fierce resistance from Republicans and Democrats all across the Hudson Valley, in both the Assembly and the Senate, and both the Assembly and the Senate one house, because the governor proposes a budget and the Senate and the Assembly respond with their own. Both the Assembly and the Senate rejected the housing compact and the transit-oriented development proposal. That's the good news. The bad news is the governor's tripled down on her desire to get this across the finish line and is now spending close to $5 million on ads, on TV, digital, etc., even mail, trying to convince voters across New York State why her proposal is the right one. It's wrong for the Hudson Valley. I believe it'd be wrong for Patterson. And so we have to wait and see where we wind up there. But again, bipartisan opposition in that respect. And the third issue has to do with accessory dwelling units. They do want to legalize accessory dwelling units, or at least provide a path to legalization for accessory dwelling units. I can't recall, Supervisor, if Patterson allows accessory dwelling units already in your zoning code.
We do with reasonable standards.
With reasonable standards, right. So I don't believe it would impact you directly,
Oh, very much so.
only because you'd be grandfathered in if you already allowed in the zone, if you're in your zoning code. That's my understanding.
But I thought we had 3 years to change that.
You do have 3 years to change it if it's not in the code, but my understanding is, based off of some conversations I've had, that if you already acknowledge and allow for ADUs under your zoning code, you'd be left alone. But again, we won't know until I'm holding the budget bill, reading the details, and then being told I have to vote for it in about 15 minutes. So that's usually how Albany works. So those are the housing proposals. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. Third thing I want you to keep an eye on is something called FMAP. My predecessor, great friend, County Executive Kevin Byrne, has been a champion raising the flag on this one. FMAP is dollars that are allocated by the federal government to the state of New York, which is then dispersed to the counties to implement Medicaid services and pay for Medicaid. The governor has proposed taking $635 million of the FMAP federal allocation, which is all of it, sweeping it to New York City to pay for the migrant crisis. Now, the biggest problem that we have with it, according to the New York State Association of Counties, is it's going to put the counties in a position where they have to make a binary decision. They're either going to cut services because they can't pay for it, or they're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. How would they pay for it? Property taxes. And if you look at the New York State Association of Counties, nonpartisan, it just is what it is, they're estimating property taxes would go up between 7 and 14%, depending on what county you live in. Now, I believe we're facing an affordability crisis all across New York State. Our number one export right now is people. We lead the nation in outward migration. A lot of it, all of it, is about the affordability factor and the fact that it's now the number one state, the most expensive state to retire in, number 2 in the country when it comes to starting and running a business. You know, we're leading in all the wrong categories, and now we're looking at potentially a 7 to 14% property tax hike to pay for a migrant crisis down in New York City. That's a big thing that we need to keep an eye on because it would have a direct impact, again, on the property taxpayers here in Patterson. The other thing I want to talk about, veterans, near and dear to my heart, I know to the entire town of Patterson. I know how proud you are of the men and women who wear the uniform, and that's why I'm baffled by the fact that the governor actually proposed cutting funding to veteran services all across New York State, including here in the Hudson Valley. We had a press conference to shine the light on this down at the Mahopac American Legion. The good news is, once again, the Senate and the Assembly rejected her proposed cuts, and they've restored them, and we're confident that in the final budget that there will not be any cuts to veteran services that's funded by New York State. But the fact that the governor even proposed it is really ridiculous. So, but unfortunately, those are the games that Albany plays. I want to mention AIM, which obviously the town receives from the state for your budgeting purposes, is expected to remain flat this year, which, as a former local government official, I disagree with the cost of everything going sky high, as we just heard from the schools. Obviously, more funding from Albany would only help your local budget and offset some of the costs that you're seeing. Similarly, they are also proposing to keep our CHIPS and extreme winter recovery money for local roads flat. Biggest problem there is the cost to pave has increased by 30%. So if you're getting the same number, 30% more cost, that means you're doing 30% less when it comes to paving our local roads. We're trying very, very hard to increase that number. To the state Senate's credit, they put a big number on the table in their proposal for the state budget, and I'm hopeful and I'm supporting the fact that we need to invest more in our local roads, especially considering the inflation and construction costs that are going through the roof. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, if I could, actually a few more things, believe it or not. Obviously, NYSEG. We get calls in my office constantly, daily, about the problems facing NYSEG. I think it's important people understand two things. One, there is still a 31% rate hike being proposed for NYSEG ratepayers. That is approved by the Public Service Commission. I have already opposed that publicly numerous times. I'll be sending another letter this week to the Public Service Commission, once again opposing a 31% rate hike for NYSEG customers. But there's also a supply cost. And the supply cost is not regulated, and that's the cost to produce energy, to produce your electricity. And the supply cost is dictated by the general economy of the time. And so just like when you go over to pump gas into your car and the numbers fluctuate, same with the supply costs. So when you go talk to the utility companies about how are you raising rates without an approval from the PSC, they're not actually raising the rates. The rate increase is coming from the supply side, which is a pass-through to customers. So I think that's important for your residents and the ratepayers who are nice like customers, because that's the way it's set up, understands that. But we still need to guard against the 31% rate hike, because if you think about it, if they approve the 31% rate hike, you're going to see an increase of nearly 70% for your utility bills. It's just outrageous. Again, going back to that affordability issue and the affordability crisis that we're facing, it really is just baffling that we continue to make these types of decisions. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about, Supervisor, something that you and I have talked about quite often, is harmful algal blooms, especially as it relates to Putnam Lake and all of our waterways. The HABs is something that I see in every water body in my district. It's a real issue, not just here for Patterson, but Putnam Valley, Yorktown, etc. The state, and this is something that the supervisor and I had many conversations about, did a pilot program a couple years back where they were supposed to invest dollars into finally addressing the problem. I don't believe we ever got to a real conclusion to what that pilot program produced, and at least not to the sense that it actually made any type of improvement. So I have actually introduced legislation, A6266, which would establish a legislative commission to study the effectiveness of their water body management. It would also classify HABs, which are the harmful algal blooms, as a water contaminant. So this way we can try to get more dollars directed from the state. But I know that's a big issue, especially in the Putnam Lake area, but also for the entire region that we live in. And so I know, Supervisor, that's something that you and I have talked about extensively. But also, going back to some of the proposals that you're seeing, taking away some of that local control and the local review process, you don't know the impact it's going to have on things like our waterways and our water bodies. So, it's all holistic, and we really need to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on it. And so I just wanted to come and just provide you the update. And there's constantly new updates that can come, but it's great to be in Patterson. I appreciate the partnership and the collaboration with you and the entire town board. And just know that my office is right over here in Brewster at 3 Star Ridge Road. We are a constituent-focused office. We have someone on just to deal with veterans issues. We have a staffer on just to deal with senior issues. And we do our best to get back to everyone as quickly as we can. Again, that's 3 Star Ridge Road, the number being 278-2926, 845-278-2926. So please feel free to reach out to us if we can be of any assistance.
Thank you.
Any questions for you?
Well, I do have a couple of comments. I'd just like to drive home the issue with the housing compact.
Yeah.
Certainly, that's probably one of my biggest concerns, seeing that legislation and the fact that she's stripping away zoning from local control. So my residents are not going to determine how their town is going to grow.
No.
But we have a hamlet here that is rich in history, and that history will be wiped out as those historic houses are going to be torn down for apartment buildings. We ran the numbers based on the criteria that is in the governor's proposal. She's looking to force 17,000 new dwelling units in the hamlet area.
Yep.
Around the train station.
Yep.
That will be transformative to my community. We won't be
Transformative to the entire county and region.
Yeah, we won't be a rural community anymore.
No.
And I do want to, one last thing on the harmful algae blooms. Going back to when the governor was gonna, offer us a solution and some financing to find that solution, it would be good to get back there and see a real solution.
Yeah.
I had submitted to the DEC a list of studies we need to come to a conclusion and draw a watershed plan that would be functional and solve the problem for Putnam Lake. That never happened. It was ignored. We can move forward, but one of the things we're going to need help with is overcoming a lot of the regulatory barriers we're going to be running into. Because I am absolutely convinced the solution to Putnam Lake is to get the legacy phosphorus out of the lake. To do that, we're going to have to get creative. We're going to have to dredge that lake somehow. I can't do that if I'm going to be blocked by the DEC. So
Right, of course.
when we get the plan formulated, I will be reaching out to you again.
Ready to go whenever you are.
Thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the town board?
Okay, go ahead.
You go.
Electric vehicles. You're just talking about NICEAG, the rate hike.
Yep.
You know, there's constant outages, sometimes long-term outages. Has there been any, you know, change or, you know, overwhelming concern for that mandate?
So there are, I can say that first part of your question, no, there's been no change. Second part of the question is, yeah, there is overwhelming concern. There should be. Fact of the matter is, and again, I just want to say, I don't oppose green energy. I understand and appreciate that it needs to be part of the equation. However, we've never done, as a state, a cost-benefit analysis to understand the true cost of implementing the policies that they've already signed off on. And the utility companies are the ones who have to pay for it. You know where the utility companies get their dollars from? Ratepayers. So they're passing it along right to people like us to implement the green energy policies without ever knowing what the true cost is. And that's really shameful. That's poor governing right there, because you just have no idea how much it's going to cost each and every ratepayer. So there, unfortunately, has been no slowing down from the state's perspective, despite demands asking for cost, reliability studies, you know, some of the basic things when it comes to utilities that we should know about before implementing an entirely new system. Obviously, Indian Point shutdown is still having a massive impact, and now they're looking to run this project, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Hydro Quebec, where we're going to be purchasing power from Canada. They're running an extension cord down the Hudson River, because that's not dangerous, and they're going to literally run an extension cord down the Hudson River at the bottom of the river to hook up to New York City. I mean, I don't even have words to describe, you know, how just bizarre the policy making is from an environmental and energy standpoint. But the energy policy of the state is just backwards, because we're not really thinking about ratepayers at all.
Well, I mean, I don't want to, you know, a silly question. Has anybody spoken to NICEAG? Because I
Oh, yeah.
speak to representatives and they tell me, we can't handle this.
Oh yeah,
There's-
no,
it's
they
not
said the same
possible.
thing to me.
We can't handle it.
And honestly, there was an energy coalition that put a letter out, I believe it was in 2022, directly asking those questions. And the energy coalition was all the people who were delivering the power all across New York State. Not just the people who deliver it, but the people who produce it. Because they have no idea how they're going to get this done. But they're just being told you have to. And then again, no cost-benefit analysis, no estimates on reliability. Are we going to have brownouts? We don't know, because no one's ever actually studied it. I mean, the New York Independent Systems Operator already has said that the grid is thinning. I mean, we need to put more power back into the grid. And the way that they're going about it, I think, is just backwards and wrong. And they're really not taking a holistic approach to it. Again, I'm not saying no to green. I'm not saying no to renewables. It's part of an equation. And if you look at it, green energy is not producing base power. We know that. ISO, the Independent Systems Operators, already confirmed it. So we really need to take a hard look at the energy policy. We're still asking those questions. There are people who understand that, you know, we're really coming to a point of no return. And hopefully we can really get some good answers to know where we're going before it's too late, and we're just following California once again.
And as Assemblyman Slater knows, that the supervisors, when he was a former supervisor, and we worked well together as that, met periodically with the president of NICEAG.
Oh yeah.
And they're as perplexed as everybody else. And
Yep.
this rate increase that they're proposing for their distribution rates is directly related to the fact that they need to start replacing lines to account for the green energy demands. When you turn houses completely electric, when you start charging cars, you've got to have the capacity in your lines, your overhead lines, to carry that. They don't have it.
Correct. Just correct. And again, we're the ones paying for it at the end of the day. So, and we just don't know what the cost is going to be. Yes,
Quick
sir.
question. Why is the bail reform and even the housing part of the budget?
So again, it makes no sense, right?
No.
It makes no sense. But fact of the matter is, the state passes what's called Article 7 language, which is policy, and they tack on policy to the budget every single year. They passed cashless bail as part of the budget in 2019. It's not new. This is the way that, unfortunately Albany's run for decades, especially when it comes to the budget. We have a reform package that's in place that would stop it, but it would take people with, frankly, some political guts to go get it across the finish line, and we keep meeting resistance. And it's the institutional power of the state legislature and the state and the governor, really.
Thank you, Assemblyman Slater. I wanted to ask you, and I want to appreciate you bringing the harmful algal blooms back to the table. As recently as this morning, County Executive Burns' office was requested for information from the press, which, working in the health department, obviously we drafted and got to him.
Yep.
I was involved, as was Supervisor Williams, back when they created those original HAB plans, and I agree wholeheartedly. It seemed like the focus was more about creating the plans than actually getting plans that would solve the problem, and it seemed to coincide with a re-election time of year. So it was just, that slate.
They'd never do that. They would never
I say
do
that out loud. But the reality is that Putnam County, I think, is uniquely impacted by these harmful algal blooms. We see it every year, and with the nice weather that we saw today, people are starting to think about the summertime, and we have Putnam Lake, Lake Carmel, Lake Cassie that sometimes don't have a summer at all.
Right.
Lake Peekskill.
Yep.
And so anything that we can do to support getting back to the root cause, getting rid of the legacy, the phosphorus and the nitrogen, and teaching our community best practices to try to, it's one thing to fix it, but we have to change the behaviors as well. But I really applaud and want to commend you for bringing that back to the conversation.
It needs to be, because it's impacting every community.
Absolutely. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. I don't know if anyone else has any questions, but I'm happy to.
Does the audience have any questions? All right.
Last chance, I'm joking.
So I'm gonna listen, Matt. I'm gonna get you out of here because honestly, you're one of the hardest working assemblymen I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Elected officials that I've ever seen. You're everywhere I go. I don't know how you do it.
I enjoy it. I believe in public service.
Other than you don't have any other life.
Yeah.
So,
well, I do. I have
trying
two
to get
kids
you
that I'm
out of
hopefully
here
going to get
so
home
you
to
can
put
see
to
you
bed
all.
tonight.
Everybody understands.
Thank you very much.
So, all right. Have
Thank
a
you
good
so
night.
much. Appreciate the
very
time
much.
and the opportunity.
you.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.
That was intentional. Okay. Can I get a motion on the reports?
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the code compliance report for March 2023, the dog control officer report for March 2023, the environmental conservation inspector report for February and March 2023, and the Patterson Rec report for February 2023. So moved?
Second.
Wait, there's one more.
There was code enforcement. Said
Oh, there was for
Came in today.
it came in today a little after 4, so I printed it for you. And it's there if you want to take a peek.
So I apologize, I haven't seen
No
it.
worries.
So
Do you want to put it for the next?
can we table that till next time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yep.
All right, do I have a second?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll make a motion, we approve the supervisor's report for February 2023. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And motion to approve the bid opening for the highway materials for March 15th, 2023. The bid opening for the seasonal lawn maintenance and landscaping for Putt Lake Park District and the town of Patterson. And the town board meeting minutes of February 22nd and March 8th, 2023. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Somebody like to audit some bills?
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve abstract number 6 dated March 24th, 2023, in the amount of $326,558.39. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also like to approve abstract number 7A dated April 7th, 2023, in the amount of $3,761.30. So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I believe we have one budget transfer and one
Two.
budget adjustment.
Yes, we do. We'll do the budget transfer first. This is budget transfer request number 2, and necessary to reallocate funds for the highway machinery equipment account for the purchase of a new tractor. So we'll be moving $2,324 from machinery contractual expense accounts to machinery equipment and capital outlay expense accounts. So make a motion to the town board, approve budget transfer request number 2. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have a budget adjustment request, number 1. Following budget adjustment is necessary to carry forward 2022 budget balances with interest for the EMS building, Dorset Hollow extension, and landfill monitoring projects. We'll be increasing the fund balance designated capital projects, $168,155.84, as well as increasing ambulance equipment and capital outlay, $76,299.69, and water capital projects, Dorset Hollow extension, $91,755.05, and the refuse and garbage equipment and capital outlay, land monitoring project, $101.10. So I'll make a motion that the town board approve the 2023 budget adjustment request number 1. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. First item on my agenda is the Recreation Center door repair. We have they had an issue to troubleshoot at the door at the Recreation Center, so under further inspection, they found that the automated door gearbox was defective. I'd like to make a motion to approve $900 for the work that needs to troubleshoot and fix the door and get it back to the door where it should be in working order. So I'll make a motion to approve $900 for the door. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have Patterson Rec announcing they're offering 2 sessions of tennis camp from the 7th through the 12th for 7th through 12th grade students. You can get the dates off at www.pattersonny.myrec.com. The location will be at the Carmel High School tennis courts, and I'd like to make a motion to approve this camp along with the price of $150 per session. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next request is a highway department is in need of a new computer. So I have here 2 quotes. I don't see a memo or a piece.
There is no
So they-
memo.
Okay, so we're moving forward on this. This is exactly what they want?
This is what they want.
Okay. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the purchase from Dell Technologies for a Precision 3660 tower in the amount of $1,717.06. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd also like to make a motion to approve the Dell 24-inch video conferencing monitor at the total cost of $144.61. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to take Pete's EMS requests. I have a resolution in front of me for authorizing hiring of a EMT. So I'd like to make a motion to authorize the hiring of Simon Oram to serve as a part-time EMT at the rate of $20.50 and enter this resolution into the record as though read upon all paperwork being completed. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Another resolution here. Also, I'm glad to see that he's getting some candidates in. We lost a couple the last meeting. Authorizing the hiring of another emergency medical technician. Jeffrey Shishler as a part-time EMT at the hourly rate of $20. So I'll make a motion to authorize Jeffrey as a part-time EMT, enter this resolution into the record as though read, of course, upon completion of all paperwork. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we have another EMT that I believe is going from a temporary to a permanent part-time EMT, Mr. David A. Smith. I'd like to make a motion to make David a permanent part-time EMT and enter this resolution into the record as though read. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sean, you want to take the shirts?
Happy to, but Charlie
Oh, Charlie, you
spoke
wanna
up
take
and
the
said
shirts?
he wanted to, so
Sorry.
no worries.
See, we have a request from our EMS administrator to purchase Port Authority polo, short sleeve polo shirts. And the low bidder was Extreme Design in the amount of $1,071. I'll make a motion that the town board approve this request. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. We also have a request from our EMS administrator relative to, these are also shirts.
The tactical polos.
I'm sorry? Tactical polos. And low bidder was Rescue Stuff, Inc., in the amount of $3,200, so I'll make the motion the town board approve that request. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have, and we do this every year, we contract with the county to provide us a resource worker from the Office of Senior Resources to aid our seniors with a multitude of tasks. They can contact the Office of Senior Resources. Actually, she was just at our senior lunch. Introduce herself. We have a new person. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the contract for the senior outreach worker, sending January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 with, as I said, with the Office of Senior Resources, and authorize the supervisor to enter into the contract. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If I can just say along the lines of this, the director, Mike Cunningham, has offered to come in and talk to the board, and I think it just kind of got lost in the shuffle, but to talk about the services and the types of things that they provide in more detail. I will reach out to him and see
He's
if
never
he
contacted me.
I spoke with him a while back, and I think it just fell through the cracks, to be honest,
Okay.
to get it scheduled. So, but I know he was eager to come in when it was convenient for us, when we didn't have a lot of presentations or anything. So, I'll reach out to him and just say, if you want to talk to the supervisor's office and get on that agenda.
Listen,
that'd
I'll
be
bring it
great.
up next time I see him.
Great. Okay.
She was appointed previously.
Charles?
Next, we have a resolution to approve new members for the Patterson Fire Department. And Patterson Fire Department has accepted as members of the department Gabriella Jacobson, Nicholas Grandados, Daniel Igazak, Max Bellenschein. If I mispronounced anybody's name, I apologize. They have also submitted the name of Jessica Silvers, but we have had previously approved that young lady. So I'll make a motion that the town board approve these accepted members of the Patterson Fire Department. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Next, we have Putnam Lake Park Board request relative to the delivery of white sand and the laborers. We have two bids, and okay. So the low bid was from Prime Excavation and Trucking in Brewster in the amount of $5,298.72. So I'll make a motion that the town board approve that bid. So moved.
Second.
Okay. Next, we have a bid from Healy Electric, which we are going to table this evening. So, and
We're still waiting for a second bid.
Rich, just
That's
a
it.
point of, for the sand pit, we did a second, there was no vote.
All in favor?
Keep everybody out of trouble.
Trying to keep everybody
No,
out of trouble,
absolutely.
especially the supervisor.
All right, the next item we have is an interesting situation where a resident was made aware of a violation in their home, but the violation existed when they bought the home 10 years ago. It wasn't caught at that time. It was caught now, and as many of you know, when you have to apply for a permit after the fact, there is a deterrent within the code that asks for a doubling of fees. In this case, the homeowners asked us to consider waiving those doubling of fees because essentially it wasn't picked up when they bought the house. They bought the house with a finished basement. There are measures in place now, as we're aware, that inspections are done on changes of transfer of ownership. So that's why we see more violations being resolved now than we might have, say, 10 years ago. So I will make a motion that in the matter of Margaret DeMarinis at 383 Route 164, that we waive the doubling of fees. They still are paying all the building department fees, as everybody's aware, so they're still paying the normal fees. It's just that deterrent.
And zoning fees.
And zoning fees. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So the second item is really just a acknowledgement or an announcement that coming up in May 6th, is the biannual Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day. And this is an event, this actually ties into some of the conversations we have quite often about water quality and protecting the environment. And so often, so many of the things that hurt the environment can be caused by people dispose of things improperly. So what we're trying to avoid, much like medication take-back day and the drop boxes that we've mentioned in the past, is people not disposing of things improperly. So this is an event that is held, this one will be May 6th at the Fawnstock State Park, which is over off of Route 301 in the town of Kent. Pre-registration is required, and you can go to the Putnam County Health Department website to pre-register. The event will run from 8:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. We actually added an hour this year to the event because it has been so popular. This normally draws somewhere between 400 and 450 residents of Putnam County, and it's really amazing to see the volume of products that people bring from their garage, from their basement. Sometimes entire pickup trucks are loaded to the maximum with products that people save. So I know that we have these on the health department website. They're in print ads. They're on the town. They're down available at the front desk. In fact, I saw this listed in the Courier, I believe, this week, and will be advertised. So if you're interested, please avail yourself of that service and get rid of those items that should not go into household trash. Thank you for that public service announcement.
Okay. First on my agenda is, as promised, a resolution in support of a New York audit. I've provided the town board members with a modified resolution. Does anybody have any comments on the resolution?
Yes, you also spoke to the Board of Elections.
I did.
Okay. I'm good.
So this has been somewhat of an interesting and somewhat challenging journey for me, trying to decide on what position I should take on supporting or not supporting this resolution. And I did, as Charlie alluded to, meet with the commissioners of Putnam County, of the Board of Elections. I want to say from the outset that I think Putnam County couldn't have two better commissioners than we have in Kelly Primavera and and Kathy Croft.
Thank you.
I think they do an outstanding job. And, you know, having been through a number of times voting here in Putnam County in Patterson, I don't see where there's any potential for fraud going on. I think the poll workers do an outstanding job as well. Sometimes I'm sure it's like herding cats, but I think they do an excellent job. And based on my experiences here in Putnam County, this isn't something that I would necessarily support. I really wouldn't, because I don't think we have a problem here. That being said, there's known voter fraud going on throughout the state. You know, we've seen voter fraud in 2001 in Staten Island, in Rensselaer County. All convictions. Between 2013 and 2023, there were actually 15 convicted known cases of voter fraud. So it does happen. I don't see any problem with moving forward on supporting an audit of New York State. We all go through audits constantly. I mean, I get audited by the Controller's Office, we get audited by the Department of Health, we get audited by the Department of Labor frequently, you know? And I don't look at that as a negative, I look at that as a positive in making sure that we're doing the best job we can for our residents. And I don't think there's any difference here. The only thing I would like to do is I would like the board to really hone in on this resolution, make sure that you're comfortable with everything that's in here. I'm not sure that we still don't need a number of tweaks. And then I apologize for everybody here, but put it on for the next agenda and make sure that, you know, because I'd like all 5 of us to weigh in on it. You know, I think this should be, you know, something the whole board decides on.
Fine with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so with that,
Thank you for.
if you would just approach the mic, give your name and address for the mic, so we have you. You can take it right out. You can hold it.
That's okay. My name is Susan Cadu. I live in Putnam Valley, New York. I thank you for your consideration of this, and I do understand that you went to the Putnam County Board of Elections and spoke with them. I've spoken with Kelly Primavera as well, and I'm glad you'll take some time to consider. I've requested the walkbooks for Putnam County from New York State Citizens Audit. That is from the raw data that New York Citizens Audit got from the New York State Board of Elections, the Secretary of State's website, and the Putnam County Board of Elections information. So it's all their information, and I will be getting the walkbooks hopefully this week. I requested them last week, but these, as I said in the last meeting, these are all volunteers that do this. No one is paid a penny for any of this. And I know that there are over 5,000 clones, and when I say clones, that means residents of Putnam County. There's over 5,000 residents of Putnam County that have more than one State Board of Election ID number. That is the number that is like your Social Security number. And do you know anybody that has 2 Social Security numbers? You just get that one. And from the State Board of Elections information, the NICE voter database, there are over 5,000 residents in Putnam County that have 2 or more State Board of Election ID numbers. I wish I had those numbers before I came here tonight, because I would have been able to show you that, but I didn't get them yet. But I should be getting them this week, and I would be happy to email. I'll just check with the higher-ups in New York Citizens Audit, but I don't think that they would have, well, I don't know. I'll find out if I can send you that information, or maybe I could come over with Kevin. Sorry, Kevin, come on out. Sure, come and block me from the camera. I can share that information with you, so that maybe that can help you to make a decision, because I know that the county commissioners are doing the best they can, but they don't see what New York Citizens Audit found. It's built in the NICE voter database it's like another layer or multi-layers behind, and the county voter rolls, I'm sure they do as good a job as they can keeping them updated. People do move, there's not much you can do, but you can't keep it 100%. People are moving, selling their homes every day. But what we're talking about, what we discovered, is such a massive amount of fraud. And it's not voter fraud, because that would be if they tried to frame a citizen that might have tried to vote twice. You know, maybe I didn't give up my registration in Putnam Valley when I moved to Patterson, and I tried to vote over there, and then I came over here. That would be voter fraud for me. But this is election fraud. This is bigger than the individual voter. That the individual voter had, there could be people in this room, probably there are more than one person in this room, that has something wrong with what New York State Board of Elections has on file for them. And New York State Board of Elections could potentially, I'm not saying they would, but they could potentially turn it around and say that it is identity theft for, you know, they're stealing someone's information and duplicating it. So I wish I had that information when I came here tonight, and I don't have it yet, but I will get it, and I will find out what I could share with you, and if I can come over my name again is Susan Cadu. I will schedule a meeting with you and go over some of that information with you if you'd like to do that before you make your final decision, because really would hope that you would consider doing this, because like you said, you're audited all the time. If you had money in your bank account and they were missing just $100, you'd be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? We're talking 1.9 million irregular registrations. People are paid good money to manage that database, and how do you let that much slack happen? It's either horrific, what is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Incompetence, horrific incompetence, or terrible evilness, where they're changing the way our state is heading. So thank you, though, for not shutting it all down tonight. I will try to be more
I'm really glad you made the distinction, though, between bad data and bad people, because I think, like you said, based on the numbers, I was thinking the same thing. There's probably 2 or 3 people in this room out of the numbers, and people wouldn't have a clue. Any one of us wouldn't know if our data was bad. So it doesn't automatically translate to people saying, aha, I can go vote twice. But it does point to data that probably needs to be scrubbed and cleaned and, looked at.
And audited. When was it
Right.
last looked at? How many times
Or
in the
better
last
yet,
5
how would an
years?
individual look and find these things for themselves?
You absolutely can't.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some brilliant minds in New York Citizens Audit. These are 7-figure data analysts that were without a job during COVID, and they had time, and they said something doesn't feel right, and they looked into this, and these are, like I said, very brilliant minds. So thank you for not shutting it down tonight.
Well, and I'm
We're
glad
not going to shut it down.
the supervisor said that, when we go to vote, certainly in Patterson, we've got sticklers. I signed my name, and they said, oh, that doesn't look like your name. Well, you know what? When I looked, they were right. I had signed it kind of quick, and they were very quick to say, whoa, wait a minute, stop.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think we've got some tremendous people that are working our local polls.
And I don't doubt that
But,
at all.
yeah.
I work them too. I
Yeah.
mean, we're citizens. We're doing this because we're patriotic, and we want
Sure.
to make sure that our votes count. But
Yeah.
there's some funny business, which isn't even funny. It's evil
Understood.
business going on in the nice voter database that even our commissioners don't have access to. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of echo everything that Sue said, and just thank you for not just dismissing it. Thank you for keeping an open mind. Again, a lot of this won't be caught at the county level because it is higher up, and really seeing that some of these same problems are showing up in other states. In other words, there's the same. Basically, how these duplications are done, the algorithm or the matrix is showing up in other states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, other places. So it's not. So that's why the whole thing needs to be audited. I mean, because it can't be just one part of it. It's got to be, the whole thing's got to be audited. So just, I just want to thank you again, thank you. Thank you for keeping an open mind, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on my agenda, I was somewhat excited about because there was an organization that was proposing a historic tour of Sybil Ludington's Revolutionary Ride, and I received an email today that they are not going to be the tours, not doing the tour, so we can move on. All right, next on my agenda is a request by Karma Trayana. They've asked for a road name change. The current road name is Nosh Cola Lane. It is off of Ice Pond Road. This has been going back and forth, I know, for a number of months with the planning board, trying to make a recommendation. And apparently the applicant and the planning board have finally come to agreement. They would like to change Nosh Cola Lane to Yellow Lotus Lane. But do you have an issue with that?
Any idea what the meaning is?
Well, it was a compromise from what they, what the people that purchased the property really wanted. It was a compromise between them and the planning board to come up with something that, kind of met the flavor of what they want to use the property for, but not as radical as some of the other names that they had put out there. So I'd like to make a motion that the town board approve the change of Nosh Cola Lane to Yellow Lotus Lane. So
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right. And last on my agenda is an executive session, which I will defer to the end of the meeting. Other business. Any town board member have any other business at this time?
No.
Mayor?
No, thanks,
I have one item. Just wanted to announce for the public and for the board's knowledge. We've been talking about this over probably many years, but the Boardwalk project in Patterson, the environmental swamp. We had mentioned that Earth Day, which will be not this Saturday, but next Saturday, April 22nd. We will be doing a little bit of a ceremony and unveiling the beautiful sign that Rick and Gail Saracelli had made in memory of their son Anthony, and with a beautiful poem about the Great Swamp. So we're going to be putting up a beautiful kiosk and having that mounted and do a nice ceremony 10 a.m. on Saturday morning on April 22nd. So if you haven't gotten down there to look at the boardwalk, please do. We did some railings around the main deck 2 weekends ago, and I stopped by before the meeting, and there were people sitting in lawn chairs and just with their bird watching and just really enjoying. And it seems like on a weekly basis, people are either contacting me or somehow I'm finding out how many people really enjoy that project. So that's thanks. That's all the thanks in the world you can get for a project. But I think it'll be a beautiful tribute to the hard work that the Saracellis have given to the town of Patterson over the years. And so wanted to mention that.
It is well worth the walk down there, I will tell you. And I know Chris is here who's been working on it. But Sean and his team have just done an absolutely amazing job in building this boardwalk through the Great Swamp.
And I think people are always amazed that it's all volunteer work. That I think, I'm touched, and Chris, you can probably agree with me that when you're working down there, people stop and they say, thank you so much for what you're doing. And it's even more so when they find out it's volunteer. The money has come from grant funding and from different revenue streams. The Saracellis donated quite a bit of money to the project. And so it's been a real win-win for the town of Patterson. I think it's something we should be very proud of. So thank you.
Okay. I have two announcements. One is the Putnam Lake Fire Department Ladies Auxiliary is having a penny social on April 30th at 12 p.m. at the Putnam Lake Fire Department. Always a good time. Encourage everybody to go out. The second is that going back to the NYSEG issue, just to let everybody know, NYSEG has been planning for a few years now to install what they call smart meters on everybody's home. They will be replacing your current electric meter for a meter that will allow them to know when you have no power on at your house. It will allow them to monitor your electric usage, but it will allow you to dial in through the internet to see daily or hourly what your internet usage is and how you can perhaps change your use habits so as to save money. So, and that project is starting in the town of Patterson sometime around May 1st. You will be getting postcards to let you know when they are coming. You certainly can refuse entry if you want, but this is a program that I believe is going to be beneficial to everybody. It's not going to raise your rates any more than they already have. So.
Question, you said refuse entry, but the meters on the outside, they're just replacing the meter?
Onto your property, yeah.
Oh, onto the property, I see.
Onto the property.
Okay, got
Yes.
it.
And, that is it. Public recognition. Any member of the audience here tonight wish to ask any questions? If you would approach the mic and state your name and address for the record. Ask your question or make your comments.
Good evening, Scott Steven, Town of Southeast. I actually just came to see the Carmel School budget presentation. I always appreciate when the districts reach out to the local communities, and I just wanted to applaud them on that. But tied to their statements on safety and security, nothing's more important than our kids. I just wanted to throw a couple of dates out there on information that's going on locally. On Monday, Putnam County Protective, I forget which one, but it's meeting on Monday. There's a whole list of presentations on AARP funding for school security. The Sheriff Department is rolling out something, the DA is rolling out something. So if anybody is really interested, at 6:30 over at the county offices, I want to say it's room 318, but it's on the website. A lot of information available, what the county is doing to partner up with the schools. Sorry, I'm almost blind here. Brewster is also putting on a CRAZE training on Tuesday, which is Citizens Response to Active Shooting Training. And they're offering this to the students, and they're also offering it to all the employees and to the community. That is on Tuesday night, and that will be followed on Wednesday, whereas the general school safety presentation also at the Brewster High School that's being done through the Sheriff's Department. They did this last year as well, but the Sheriff Department comes in, some of the SROs, they talk to the community, they hear their concerns, they show what's going on, just to keep the people appraised of what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
George Disbrow, representing the Patterson Library. Without specific programs, I just want to let people know in the audience, as well as those who may be viewing this, please go to our website and check out all the adult, teen, and children programs. There's lots of stuff going on, movies. Sometimes the adults' activities have babysitters as well, so you can bring the kids looked after safely. And that was one thing. And the other thing is, if anybody who's either here tonight or eventually going to watch this, if you're interested in being a trustee, please go to the website. And if you're not ready to make that commitment, we do have a Friends group that started up last month, Friends of the Patterson Library. And if you'd just like to be involved in whatever's going on, we would welcome that. And thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, then we will turn to those joining us by Zoom. If anybody joining us by Zoom has any comments or questions, if you would unmute and state your name and address for the record. Okay, so before I make a motion to go into executive session, I would just like to thank everybody who has joined us here tonight, but especially Mr. Rodell, who I have not seen in quite some time. I think it was pre-COVID, right?
Absolutely.
It was always a pleasure to see you in the audience, and I am so happy to see you back.
Thank you.
So, can I, or I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.